Today we're talking about something revolutionary, and that revolution has come with Altra's newest shoe. Now you all know Altra as being the zero drop or balanced cushioned shoe company. And of course when you hear drop, basically that is the difference between the heel stack height and the forefoot stack height. And Altra typically has zero drop, so they have the same amount of cushioning in the heel as they do in the forefoot. That all changes with the release of this, Altra's Forward Experience. And with the Forward Experience, is Altra just reinventing themselves? How was their first attempt at a shoe with drop? And what does that mean for the rest of us that already love Altra's zero drop line? Let's get into it. Let's get some disclosures out of the way. Altra was good enough to send me this pair of the Altra Forward Experience for the purpose of review. However, they're not paying me, they haven't told me what to say, and they're not going to get a chance to see this footage before you do on YouTube. So let's get the show started with price. The Altra Forward Experience will cost you $140, which is fantastic, right? Relatively speaking, $140 is fairly affordable. And of course, my barometer for what's affordable may be a little skewed because the last shoe that I reviewed was $300, which is ridiculously expensive. So the Altra Forward Experience coming in at $140 just seems like a killer deal. So the biggest thing about the Altra Forward Experience is the drop, right? I already built that up. The Altra Forward Experience does have 32mm in the heel, 24mm in the forefoot for a 4mm drop. So this is right in the realm of a low drop shoe. I want you to keep that in mind. Altra hasn't actually thrown the baby out with the bathwater. They're not done with a zero drop. They have just made a low drop shoe. And I think it was actually a pretty good business decision by Altra. Now, of course, you're going to get the die-hard Altra fans out there that are like, Altra sold their soul. They're no longer a zero drop company. My friends, Altra is not doing away with any of their zero drop shoes. They're not going to stop making zero drop shoes. All the shoes that you already love from Altra, they're going to be continued to be made. But the Altra Forward Experience more represents brand expansion. I imagine they're trying to be a little more competitive within the running shoe market. And for a brand new shoe, first attempt at a shoe with drop, I think they've done pretty well. So let's talk about it. Let's start at the top. Let's work our way down. I'm going to hold this up so you can see the heel collar, and we can see, look, this is a daily trainer. I probably should point that out first of all. This is the shoe that you're going to put a lot of your miles in throughout the week. It's going to be comfortable, it's going to be supportive, it's going to give you enough cushioning where you're going to feel good after you've run in the shoes. But the heel collar is quite like a daily trainer. We've got a lot of padding around the heel collar, but then on the inside you can see we've got these bolsters on each side coming around to the heel. These extra bolsters just give a little bit of feeling of support on the back of your heel while it's seated in the shoe. It's a very comfortable feeling. The heel counter, well, there's really no heel counter. It's just like reinforced upper. In fact, I don't even think there's anything in there. But we've just got the rigidity as a product of the thickness of the actual upper. And a lot of times when I run in a shoe that doesn't have a heel counter, sometimes I get a little feeling of looseness in my heel, not always heel slip. Sometimes it just feels a little loose when I'm standing around. I didn't have that experience in the Altra Forward Experience. But also you can see this midsole comes up a little higher here on the lateral and especially on the medial side with this little bump. In fact, actually it's the same on both sides, but your heel sits below this top of this rubber, so that probably gives a feeling of support and gives a little more grip around your heel. And then of course, back to the bolsters, combined with that, they hold you in place nicely. The upper is an engineered mesh, and clearly in this colorway, Altra is going for a more understated look. I really like it. It looks clean, it looks fresh. Now this upper is actually fairly breathable, and I found it to be more breathable than it actually looks. It looks like quite a dense mesh, especially here on the medial side and again here on the lateral side. But we do have these areas on the upper that are a little thinner. They've cut some ventilation into the mesh and it serves double duty. It gives a little design element while increasing the ventilation of the shoe. I didn't run into any trouble with my foot feeling too hot in this shoe. We do have a few reflective elements right here by the little toe and then again on the heel. But of course, if you're running at night, I probably wouldn't leave your safety up to these little reflective elements here, but it's something. As far as overlays goes, there really aren't any. We've got this little branding right here on the back, which I think is pretty solid placement for Altra to keep the shoe looking clean and fresh. But this engineered mesh upper is stiff enough where it holds up and it keeps its shape, where they haven't had to put overlays in place to maintain the structure of the upper. There is an underlay coming around the toe box, and then of course along the eyelet chain, looks like just a TPU bit here, just giving a little reinforcement. Now moving on to the tongue. The tongue does have this lace loop right in the middle. You can see it's well, it stands out just because it's red. Now the tongue is not gusseted, and while in my testing of the shoe I didn't experience any tongue migration. Every time I put my foot in, I kind of looked at the tongue and I was like, oh, is this going to be the day when it slides around a bit? So just to reiterate, I didn't experience that, but perhaps if you have a shape of foot that does encourage tongue migration, this strikes me as the type of tongue that could move around a little bit. Now remember, we've got that lace loop right on the front, so maybe that is doing enough, but I have found that in shoes where other people find that the tongue moves around a little bit, it doesn't really happen for me, so perhaps the top of my foot is a little bit fuller, I don't know, and that just allows the tongue to stay in place. But let me know in the comments if you experience any tongue movement if you don't have a gusseted tongue. Moving down to the midsole, midsole, Altra is using a compression molded EVA. And I really like the styling that they've done on the outside of this EVA midsole. I mean, it's almost like a fingerprint, or it looks like a piece of clay where you've kind of run a fork through it. Anyway, I think it looks pretty good. Then we come along the other side, and I'm not sure if this is going to show up on camera, but I'll put something over it that shows it. But we've got Altra kind of carved into the midsole here. I really like this design element. I wanted to tell you that I wish they would have put it on the lateral side so it would show off a little more, but when I thought about it, I'm actually glad that they put it on the medial side, kind of kept it hidden, which is especially good if you want to use this shoe for work. So people that are on their feet all day, the ALTRAFWD Experience is available in black, and it would actually be a nice understated option for that. Altra is using their rocker geometry, which we can see right here with this slight toe spring. We come down to the bottom, we've got some good rubber coverage. We've got these flex grooves. You can see Altra is sticking to the normal pattern of the outsole rubber lining up with the metatarsals of your foot. And let's do a flex test. Yeah, this is nice and flexible. Of course, there is no plate in this shoe. And then perhaps you're wondering, but the insole is removable, and I'm having a hard time getting it out, but there we go. You can just pull it out and change it out if you needed to. Or for me, I usually pull this out when I'm drying out the shoe after a really sweaty run. Okay, so that's the shoe. Let's talk about ride, because this is compression molded EVA. So not exactly the most revolutionary foam, right? We've had compression molded EVA in a lot of shoes over the years. And because of that, I found the ride to be not exactly inspiring. But don't get me wrong, this is a daily trainer. Most of the time when I go out for my normal bread and butter miles, I'm not looking for inspiration. I'm not looking for an inspiring ride, something that excites me with every step. So I don't want you thinking that that's an actual dig on the shoe or how it rides. It just is what it is with this midsole material. Also, with the stack of this midsole with the 32 and the 28, oh, by the way, that is in the men's version. In the women's versions, we have 30 and 26. With this amount of stack, I almost expected it to be a plush ride. And I was a little surprised that it wasn't. Now, I would never call this a firm ride. I'd call it a moderately firm ride. I don't even like to use the word firm because of course it's all relative. But for me at least, the most similar shoe that I've run into the ALTRAFWD Experience is the Hoka Clifton 9. And that is a very, very soft ride. In fact, so soft that I've had a lot of comments that people don't actually like the Clifton 9 because it's just too soft and too plush. I think for those people, the ALTRAFWD Experience is really going to be a gem. I'm trying to come up with a comparison of what the EVA in the ALTRAFWD Experience is like, but I can only come up with stuff that it's not. So perhaps you've run in the Altra via Olympus. Remember, that is quite a firm ride. This is nothing like that. It also doesn't have Ego Max, which is in the Torin 7. So if you are an Ultra lover, I would say that the ALTRAFWD Experience feels somewhere in between the Torin 7 and the Altra via Olympus. But why don't we pull out a durometer and actually just see what the density is on this. So let's try on the heel, and I have, let's see, 33 in the heel and 34 in the forefoot. So yeah, it's pretty much the same from heel to toe. And then just to compare, let me pull out what I think is the main competitor. This is the Hoka Clifton 9. We have 27, 28 in the heel and 27 in the forefoot. So yeah, clearly the Clifton 9 is way softer than the ALTRAFWD Experience. But again, I just want to reiterate, I didn't find it a firm ride. And this was always a pleasure for me to put on my feet and go out. I didn't feel like, sometimes I feel when I'm running in a firm shoe that I'm kind of getting beaten up. And when I get done with my run, I just feel like I need a break. That wasn't the feeling I got with the ALTRAFWD Experience. It was very refreshing. And although I wouldn't want to do a workout in this shoe, I wouldn't want to pick up the pace. I think because the ride is slightly firmer than something like the Clifton 9, it lends itself better to picking up the pace. So if you wanted to do strides at the end of some of your easy runs, I think the ALTRAFWD Experience would be a good feeling shoe to do that in. But I think that is mainly a product of the density of the midsole. When I was running in the ALTRAFWD Experience, I didn't feel like this rocker was actually doing much for my stride. And look, I'm sure it is, but it wasn't noticeable. I didn't feel like it was moving me forward as I rolled over it. But again, every shoe can't be like that. Remember, daily trainer. I think with all these shoes available out there, it's very easy to start comparing them and expecting one shoe to do everything. And that is really unrealistic. I think the ALTRAFWD Experience does what it was designed to do, and I think it does it very well. Just a nice daily trainer that makes your body feel good. Very easy to run in, but you wouldn't want to choose it for your race day option. One thing I did notice that I just want to point out is the outsole rubber. Now, when I look at my heel right here on the back, I am seeing a little bit of wear already. Look, it's nothing crazy, and on the forefoot, I really don't see any wear at all, but just here on the heel where I touch down on my lateral heel edge, I'm seeing just a little bit of wear already. But then when I look at all this exposed midsole right in the middle, I'm not seeing any wear on my midfoot, and this midsole foam is to the same level as the outsole rubber. So, you know, every time my foot hits the ground, this is slowly being worn away, and I'm not seeing any wear there. So that's a good thing. Anyway, I think the ALTRAFWD Experience has enough rubber where this is going to last a normal amount of time, whatever normal is to you. Perhaps it's not going to be the most durable outsole out there, but I've seen a lot worse. And with that, yeah, I think the ALTRAFWD experience is a great step forward for Altra. I think the whole balance cushioning or zero drop thing scares a lot of people away. Of course, you go online and you see the advice that people are giving and that you've got to take it easy with a zero drop shoe. You've got to run a little bit, then a little bit more each day. I think that does put people off because that's a little too much thought to put into your running. And now Altra has taken that away by introducing this low drop shoe, this 4mm heel to toe drop, and I think it's going to bring a lot more people in, or at least that's what Altra's hoping, I would assume. But yeah, pretty happy with this. Although, saying that, all right, look, we're at the end of the video. If you are still here watching this, then thank you. I'm sure a lot of people have already switched off, but I do want to tell you that even though this is completely different, this isn't my favorite Altra shoe. I do have to share with you this. This is the Torin 7. This, without a doubt, is my most favorite Altra shoe ever. Before this, it was the Altra Torin 4.5. Plush was kind of a mouthful back then, but the Altra Torin 7 to me is the most comfortable Altra shoe out there. They're using a different midsole foam. This is Ego Max. You know, now I think about it, I would like to see Ego Max in the ALTRAFWD experience. Maybe in the second version they'll do that. But of course, I can't really compare these two because this is balance cushioning, this is a zero drop, and this is a 4mm drop. I think the people that are looking for a 4mm drop shoe probably aren't gonna all of a sudden jump ship and buy a zero drop shoe just because I'm telling you that the Torin 7 is super comfortable. But perhaps if you want to dip your toes in the low drop pool, the forward experience is going to be a good option, and if you want zero drop, I'd go with a Torin 7. And with that, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the ALTRAFWD experience. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.